yes or a no?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
No.
so current GSR, any current GSRs?
All.
All. Oh, excellent,
Current
I'm a
district
GSR.
officer, well, yeah.
excellent, I just want to know my audience. Uh, okay, so okay, number one, never been to this meeting before. Number two, I've never shared on a concept before, much less done it so that all of the internet can see me fail. So the right of decision, when I think right of decision, okay, so they just read it for us, but I'll read it again. As a traditional means of creating and maintaining a clearly defined working relationship between the groups, the conference, the AA General Service Board, and its several service corporation staffs, committees, and executives, and of thus ensuring their effective leadership, it is here suggested that we endow each of these elements of world service with a traditional right of decision. So at first glance, I would think that any alcoholic endowed with a right of decision would be overjoyed. They'd think like, oh, I'm in charge, right? Oh, I got this. You're all at my whim, right? The beauty of our program and the beauty of how general service works in my experience is that two things happen. One, a person like that never gets elected to office to that type of a situation. Or in the odd chance someone sort of flies off of the handle, they get very quickly checked by the universe around. So for me as a DCMC, okay, start out. As an alcoholic, I am a power driver. I am a show offer. I am in charge, and I want you to know it. And I will run that until you can't keep up, just to prove that I can do it. That mindset I've come to learn that mindset in life, thanks to the program, that mindset in life doesn't do me or the people around me any good, because I end up hurting myself and others in the process. In service, in this program, be it general service or be it service to a group or to a sponsee, my will is actually not the way, right? There is a way, and it's my job as an alcoholic or a recovering alcoholic to try and understand the lesson around me wherever it seems to manifest. And in service, that can kind of come in some surprising ways. My biggest lesson so far, after a full years of DCMCing a panel, is that this job isn't about coordinating everybody around me. It isn't telling people how to do what they're doing. It's about me backing the fuck off and understanding what my limitations are. Because it's a lot like my job. I'm the director of engineering for a luxury hotel in Napa. And there is more work than I will ever be able to accomplish on a daily basis. So I have to prioritize. And it's not always the squeaky wheel that needs the grease. So I've had to learn how to be discerning. And whenever I have approached the concepts, I know they're designed to sort of wrangle us alcoholics into good little shoots, so that we get a product at the end, because we all like to kind of go our separate ways. But when I look at the concepts, I have to kind of understand, I have to digest it and say, okay, where does this come from? Where in our program is this an outgrowth of, right? Because they put together the conference because the group of alcoholics it was trying to protect was getting too big. And so they were alcoholics, most of them. So they understood that the biggest threat to an alcoholic is an alcoholic. So we have to protect us from ourselves in a certain way. And that's sort of how I view the concepts as a whole. And when I look at concept 3, it took me directly to step 3 in the program. And because in concept 3, we're given the right of decision. In step 3, we make it. We made a decision, right? I think within the scope of the 12 steps, when we make that decision, we're actually giving power over to something bigger than ourselves. And when we're what concept 3 tells us is that when we're in a trusted servant position, we have a responsibility to make an educated or an informed decision that isn't based on our limited knowledge, like our own personal limited knowledge. I'm a horrible collector of quotes. Like my phone is like half full of quotes and half full of music. So so as I was going through this, I was reading and I was thinking, I'm like, oh, that quote would work there. And so I wrote down a couple quotes I'm going to read through just to let your mind chew on. In my sobriety, I came in here thinking I knew everything. And the first thing I dedicated myself to in sobriety was starting my day off with something that was not my own thinking. So I just digested as much wisdom from outside myself as possible. So I got used to running my day that way. It says, this quote says, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. And that's Lao Tzu. In step 3 and concept 3, well, step 3, I think more so, promotes what I would call the quality of discernment, our ability to know what's ours and what's not ours. I wouldn't say what's theirs, or I would say what's ours and what's not ours, and then as we move through the steps, I think there's an encouragement for us to develop a moral compass as we become more vulnerable, as we become more available. We start to realize in a little bit more visceral terms who we are, what we need, and what effect our actions have on others. Anybody who's been in a general service meeting of any kind knows that if you think no one cares about what you say or what you do, you're absolutely wrong. If you think you're right, you're not. And if you think everyone is gonna love this 90% of the time, I had this awesome idea, right? No, it doesn't happen. But jumping into a service position, if one is capable of jumping into a service position early in sobriety, if you aren't railroaded like I was into my first service position, which was secretary for a meeting. Our secretary, he went out, and I was like 6 months sober. No, not even 6 months sober, like maybe 4 or 5 months sober. And everybody, I was like, what are we gonna do? Oh, this is my first AA drama. Cool. I'm gonna watch it all unfold. And the guy who eventually became my sponsor said, I think Duncan should be the secretary. And I was like, but I'm not 6 months. And everybody else was like, it was a bunch of old guys at a men's meeting, and they were just like, nah, that's not problem. I had to learn how to be a secretary really quick, and I took it overly seriously, and I was doing this like, and then I was like, sweet, okay, my 6 months are up to move on. Spirit of rotation, I learned a little bit, right? And I was like, okay, it's time to elect or get a new secretary. And they were like, we think you're doing a great job. You should, yeah, I'm like, but my time's up. And they're like, no, you only did like half. You were just covering, you needed to do a full year. So my first 2 years of sobriety was like forced into being a secretary for a meeting for like 2 years, which probably saved my life because I was ready to go do whatever else I wanted to do. And so I learned in that time a lot of about like what responsibility and sobriety is all about, and about how I can dedicate myself uh, in a not too serious way to my sobriety and to something that's bigger than me. I think, uh, and then I started thinking, when in thinking about this, I started thinking about, okay, trust. Trust is what the right of decision is all about. It says in something I read, Concepts Illustrated, it says the principle of concept 3 is trust. And then I started thinking about the AA structure we just watched, and I was thinking about, I was trying to make, I'm like, oh, it's a circle. It's a circle of trust, just like in, circle of trust. Right. And I'm like, no. And then I started to like map it out in my notes, and my circle became this like weird, oh, there's the trustees. Oh yeah, that's right. Then there's the delegate, and then there's this. And so I was like, oh, so trust in AA is built on lots of little circles of trust, right? And that makes sense to me because as alcoholics, we're super judgmental, we're opinionated, we want things to go our way, and we don't trust very well. I think especially early in sobriety, the person we trust the least is ourselves, and I know over my 10 years or so of sobriety that like the longer I've been sober, the more I realize how little I've trusted myself. And so when offered an opportunity to be responsible for something else or something big that I care about, that that becomes, paralyzing for some people. Uh, and then so in that curly Q of trust, I wanted to call it like a pigtail, but but it's kind of like a spiral that's like ever expanding, because there's interplay, between the different groups. The groups trust the GSRs, who trust the DCMs and DCMCs, who trust the officers and the delegates, who trust the conference as a whole. The conference trusts the board and the trustees, and the board and the trustees, they trust the groups. So it kind of like Orogo's like, comes back on itself, in a way, and feeds itself. Um, and we've dedicated ourselves to a democratized sort of society, right? I did a reading group of AAs from all over the country last year, and we all analyzed how democracy in AA and how it affects that. It was really cool. And like, what is real democracy, right? And real democracy has no ego. It has no affiliation other than to itself, right? And I think we rarely see that type of democracy in a political sense, but in an organization like AA, or maybe a religious organization, you actually get people who are more dedicated to principles than they are to things like money and or social status, that type of thing. So we also trust the process, in that an informed conscience of a group is then transferred to that delegate, and therefore the delegate takes trust from groups to the conference and then brings that back to the group. So there's like we can feel like contributing members. We can feel we can feel like we're sort of protected by the society that we're a part of, and that all the people along the way are going to be acting in the best interest of the bigger thing that we're all interested in. And and what I think concept 3 says is that they're going to do it in their own way, whether you as an individual group member like it or not, or if you're a delegate, or if you're a DCMC, somebody else is going to do it their way. And I came into this program and I heard the term emotional sobriety, and I was like, that's right. I'm like, that's why I'm here. And this is where it is, right? And so emotional sobriety isn't what I thought it was when I heard the term, right? It's not. I think most psychologists would probably call it emotional sobriety maturity.
Yeah.
Which in my study for this, the word maturity does not appear in the big book at all. It's not mentioned once. I thought for sure there was going to be something I could drag in here about maturity, but leave it to a bunch of alcoholics to write a guiding principle book without the word maturity in it. The fact of the matter is I think in service, we're going to be let down. And when we're let down, it requires a certain amount of humility and maturity and the ability to weather that emotional storm that we're going to go through when that happens. We're going to put something out there that we think is fantastic and everybody's going to love it. How could anybody find a fault with this, right? I've watched it at Area a couple of times. We have things that are great, but we see those things with our limited view. We only have the ability to be who we are and work from the platform that we've been given, right? And we can grow from there. We can mature from there. We can add to our knowledge and our vulnerability and all those things. But really, we can only see it from our point of view. We can't see it from everybody else's point of view, which is why a process like this exists. You might have a great idea, but not see the faults in it. We, as alcoholics, we might think we're great people until we do an inventory, right? And we go, oh, I wasn't looking at that part of myself. I wasn't looking how I could do that. And the conference is a way to be able to look at how it benefits something bigger, and everybody gets their input, which is a pretty amazing thing. The most difficult aspect of this concept to me is that part of maturing or getting more emotionally sober for me as an alcoholic is I have to sit back and I have to do my best to be available and not help or do it for someone else and let them fail if that's what they need to do. That's really tough. But I can't teach them the lesson of what it means to fail. I mean, I know what it feels like to fail for me. And so when I see Chase struggling, because she doesn't want to pick up that phone or she doesn't want to do that thing, I can't go, it's okay, let me do that for you. Because she's not getting the lesson. She's not getting that opportunity to face her fear, to face her vulnerability, to do what the program and service asks of us as individuals, right? So, am I talking too long? But I got about 60 seconds left. Oh my goodness! All right. Okay, I'll just go to the end. I said so I'll just one more quote. St. Francis de Sales said, "You learn to speak by speaking, study by studying, and to run by running, to work by working. In just the same way, you learn to love by loving." And I think that our program is about love and tolerance. Like I said, our judges are harsh, our egos are strong, our fears and our melancholy are ruthless. When I was first getting sober, and we read those, we read all the readings that we read, and they say it's cunning, baffling, and powerful. There was a guy who was next to me, and he would always say, "and patient" at the end. So if I want to be a good alcoholic, I have to learn how to be more patient than alcohol. And, you know, that's the way I see it. And so when I'm sitting in a room with other alcoholics, whether it's general service or otherwise, I've got to sit there and I've got to learn to let it go and learn to let them do their lessons. And that goes both ways, from the groups to a trusted servant, and from a trusted servant to the group. And I think that's what concept 3 is all about for me, and I'll shut up. Thank you, guys.